The Halli Casser-Jayne Show airs Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. The podcast's always available online at hallicasserjayne.com. Do this for me, okay? Share this with me. What the heck does it feel like to realize your dream?
I don't have anything else to compare it to. It feels great. I'm fortunate. I'm happy. I've gotten to work with most or all of my heroes, been all over the world a lot of times. Fantastic.
Ah, that Lee Rocker. Great musician and a terrific guy who well deserves all that he has achieved. Today on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, joining me at my table is the iconic, the legendary bass king, one of the founding members of the American rockabilly band, The Stray Cats. Yes, Lee Rocker. Hi, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. I am Halli Casser-Jayne. Today, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is brought to you by Audible.com, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Get a free audiobook and 30-day trial today by signing up at www.audibletrial.com/The Halli Casser-Jayne Show. And remember, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is always available online at hallicasserjayne.com and a host of venues, including iHeartRadio, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, and Blog Talk Radio. He made his mark singing, playing, standing on, spinning, and rocking his giant upright bass in the legendary music group, The Stray Cats. His name, Lee Rocker, the Bass King. The kid from Long Island, he and his boyhood friends Brian Setzer and James McDonald, Slim Jim Phantom, would make rock and roll history with their Grammy-nominated band, The Stray Cats, the group that has sold nearly 10 million albums and garnered an astounding 23 gold and platinum certified records worldwide and remains a radio staple. They were music video pioneers at the infancy of MTV and repeatedly brought rockabilly music to the top of the charts. Not one to rest on his laurels, Rocker continues to astonish audiences touring, talking on his Rumble and Twang Radio Show, sharing his animated videos, and releasing new music, his Night Train to Memphis disc featuring classics from the early days of rock, classic rockabilly done like only Lee Rocker can. He even appeared in the Broadway hit musical $1 Million Quartet. Let's talk. All right, so Lee Rocker, I talk to a whole lot of musicians and singers and artists. Lots of talent crosses my path, but I'm going to tell you something that you probably are not going to believe what I'm going to say. I'm going to say you have to be maybe one of the greats of our generation. Do you hear me?
Thank you so much. That's really...
I mean that.
Nice to hear.
Well, it's true, and I've wanted to tell you that for such a long time. I mean, calling you the Bass King doesn't do your musical talent justice, so I just wanted to put that out there so you know. And so let's talk musical talent. Let's talk about that first. Let's talk about born with it, developed through hard work, a little bit of both. What do you think about talent?
Well, I think that, I'm fortunate to have a long-term career. I started very young. I started playing cello when I was 6 or 7 years old, and continued that to around 13. Started to play electric bass in bands in junior high school and high school, and then switched over probably around, 14 or 15 to upright bass. But I definitely studied, I definitely practiced, I spent a lot of time at it, and had some great teachers in the early days as well. And
including your mom and dad. Talk to me about them.
Absolutely. Yep, my mom is a clarinetist. She has a group, the American Chamber Ensemble, and she's teaches at Hofstra University and still does. And my dad was a solo clarinet with the New York Philharmonic, and he was 61 years as the first clarinet there, and also still tours and works extensively all over the world. And he's 85 at this point.
And you have a sister who's also got the talent, right?
Absolutely. My sister is a singer, and she's based most of the time out of Nashville and part of the time in San Diego. So it's definitely it's a musical family. And growing up in the house, there was music of all types, constantly everywhere, whether if it was symphonic music or jazz or rock and roll or opera, sometimes all going on at the same time.
Really? Really?
Oh, yeah.
You were a child prodigy.
I don't know about that. But
6 years old?
I definitely started young, and my career in a real way started very young, playing and sneaking into bars and clubs and like CBGB's and Max's Kansas City in New York back in the late 70s, really at the end of the punk movement. And then I moved to England from New York with the Stray Cats with Brian Jim in June of 1980.
And we're going to talk about that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves because your story is so cool. You know, if you're a young musician out there and this is the story you want to hear. This is the story that that we're going to put forward on that. I want to go back to that. You were classically trained, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, from hearing it from birth, but playing instruments as a little kid, the one rule really in the house growing up was that you played some kind of instrument and you took lessons. So I tried as a little kid a lot of different things. I tried piano, I tried clarinet, I think I tried violin briefly, but connected with the cello and took classical lessons with the cellist from 7 to my recollection of years has always been a little skewed, but I would say 7 to 12. I probably those 5 years took lessons with the classical cellist.
That's pretty cool. Because a lot of musicians don't have that kind of training, and I think that training shows up so incredibly in your work. You grew up on Long Island, right? Mm-hmm. Cool kid?
Massapequa.
A cool kid? Egghead? Good boy? Bad boy? Who was the young boy?
From those early days, I was probably a pretty okay kid, from 7 to 12, but then really started to play electric bass and rock and roll band in the garage in the teenage years. I mean, I was, a rebel in some ways, not necessarily with my family, but I hated school. I didn't go much. I went to, 3 different high schools in 3 years, actually. So I, really did not like school and didn't do much with it, but loved music and focused and read everything and practiced. And actually, instead of my senior year of high school, we managed to. I went to a music college, a small college called Five Towns Community College, that had a lot of music programs: sight singing, harmony, arranging, a couple of other classes, and bass playing, of course, and jazz band and that kind of thing. And did that year at that little college, and they gave me a high school diploma through the college as opposed to through a high school.
So we have to say from that description that music was in your blood, and that was what you were going to pump, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. How about girls? Were you into girls? Were you getting in trouble with girls when you were young?
Yeah, not really got me into trouble, but sure. And, always had a lot of fun.
All right, so I'm trying to humanize you because I think that you guys get this image going, and it's sometimes so one-dimensional. It's never one-dimensional. A equals B goes to C to D, and that's how you guys get where you're going. All right, so talk to me about this friendship with Brian Setzer and with the man who became...
Brian Setzer and Slim Jim, James McDonald, we grew up together. We grew up in the same town in Massapequa, New York, a town on the South Shore of Long Island, and we all lived within a block or two of each other. We went to the same schools, so I think I met Slim Jim in 5th grade, and Brian I probably met in 7th grade. And, it was and we were always friendly, and we were always, musical friends. There was an amazing, really, community of teenagers and kids. I don't know what was going on out there on Long Island, but, most people played an instrument. Most people played a guitar or drums, and we all gravitated towards each other. That was the social life. That was the gang. The garage at my parents' house really became the clubhouse, and we had, a PA and a drum set, amplifiers, and everyone gravitated towards that. And for a while, it was kind of an interchangeable group, in a way. A lot of different kids that played music, different nights, be different people. And then it sort of splintered off. And, we all did our own things, but we were always in touch. But with the Stray Cats, when we first started, I guess I was 16, when we really officially formed a band that was a unit and had some kind of focus to it. And at that point, the band, we had a couple of different names. It was called the Tomcats, Heads. We didn't actually, and we played around in little corner bars and parties and things like that. And things grew really quickly from being a little fun thing to a line of people down the block. So we knew we had something. but we actually didn't change the name to the Stray Cats until
Right. So
later on when we moved to London.
So tell me this, though. You grew up in this classical music house, and you come up with this completely different vibration in you. That fascinates me. And even how you got into that sound. And I guess we could also say how you got from one instrument to the next. It all kind of comes together. Talk to me about that.
Yeah,
you go by the deep of a very interesting beat.
To me, there's not huge, dividing lines and things with music, whether it's, jazz or blues or rock and roll. All of those forms of music, or bluegrass, all come from the same well of American music, and that kind of pulse and feel and spirit. And classical music is not wildly different either when you really get down to the bones of it all. So I never really felt that it was much different to be playing rockabilly or rock and roll than playing classical music. A lot of the same skill sets and are there for all of it. You've got to be able to listen. It's like a conversation. You've got to be able to listen and speak and work within a group and try to make the other person sound better.
Did you know that what was going on in your head was slightly different than maybe your parents thought should be going on in your head?
No, I never felt any kind of resistance at all from them. I was
lucky you.
Super lucky to always feel very supported with whatever I wanted to do. And I think they knew that I was serious and working hard towards a goal. Maybe if I was just kind of hanging around, not doing anything, it would have been a different story. But
did they understand your beat, though? I know you say that classical music and rock and roll and whatever, and I understand what you're saying. That's true. Are of the same. All music is music. But you did have some interesting, and you still do, which is why I'm so fascinated by you. You have this certain thing going on in your head. And I know that when it translates to what comes out of you in that sound with that instrument, nobody can do what you do. And I want to know what's going on in the head. What's the beat?
I have no idea. I have no idea, and I appreciate that. I definitely know as a bass player what I do is my own approach, and there really are not many other players
who do what you do.
Any in a certain sense doing exactly what I do.
So is it your heart?
Play rock and roll music, rockabilly music on an upright bass with I look at it also in terms of being the instrument, what I do as being sort of a bridge between percussion and bass playing, and which I think a lot of players don't. I think the rhythmic component as well as the musical, the notes, work hand in hand. And I look at it really where the drums follow what I do as opposed to the other way, and I think that's what probably one of the big differences.
That's unique. Is your heartbeat faster than most people's, you think?
I have no idea.
Your fingers certainly move faster than most people. And we're going to talk about that, but how did it become the bass fiddle? Which, come on, buddy. Who is going to pick that? You picked that. How come?
That was because I was playing electric bass and I was starting to get into early rock and roll. Chuck Berry and Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash and Presley and Willie Dixon and some of the blues people, and I couldn't get an electric bass to create that kind of sound. So I started to just mess around on an upright bass, and it really felt like a whole new world opened up to me. It's got the double bass fiddle. It's got a really wide range of sounds and really responsiveness to the touch and the intensity or lack of in terms of playing. But it's an acoustic instrument, and an electric bass is not an acoustic instrument. And I play electric. I'm not knocking it, but an electric bass is basically a piece of wood, strings, and magnetic pickups. There's no sound or barely a sound that comes off those strings, unlike an upright bass that has the body and the projection. And it just spoke to me. It connected. It became almost an extension physically.
Oh, I bet that, yeah.
Of what I do, which to me the electric didn't.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you played it? Or what that feeling was that you got?
Yeah, I remember early. I don't remember if it was the first time or not, but I got a bass, an upright bass, at about 14 or 15 years old, and just started to play it incessantly. When I first got the instrument, I would literally, practice and play hours and hours a day out in the garage with it. The old cliche, but it was true until the fingers would bleed. And loved it, and was just, sort of, hypnotized or something,
No, I understand that. And I'll bet you it is. I bet you do go into a hypnotic sort of trance even. You may be thinking, but then that something takes over. I can relate to that. Did you always set your goal to form this band that would recreate what you were hearing or feeling in your music?
Well,
were you goal-oriented?
Yes and no. I was goal-oriented. I definitely, I don't know if it was a dream or not. I knew what I wanted to have happen, and I worked hard, but it was a combination of a lot of things. And I just, for some unknown reason, I always felt like, someone would go like, well, the odds of, getting a record deal are, infinitesimal. And I just never, it sounds arrogant, but I never really took that to heart or digested that thought. I never thought the odds really applied.
You were just going to make it.
Yeah,
right.
I just
get
didn't think about it not happening. And, and that mixed in. We're just kids. Me, Brian, and Jim with that. But, enthusiasm, energy,
commitment,
and a lot of work, and a lot of fun. But we quickly knew, and I could quickly see that what we were doing really connected with an audience. We would play somewhere, on a Wednesday, some little town out in Long Island at a corner bar, and, for 30 people. And the next Wednesday there was 100. A week after that, there was a line down the street. So I and we really knew that what we were doing and how we did it had an effect.
I want to talk to you about the sound that you guys created. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk to you about it in kind of an odd way. Did you start off having the sound in your head and you guys were able together to create it? Or was the melding of the three of you what created the sound? Do you know?
Yeah, I think both. I certainly think that it was the combination of the three of us was sort of, it just came together and it was more than 1 + 1 + 1. And the music that we all were into was rockabilly, the early rock and roll sound, and punk music that was really, this was the tail end of punk in Greenwich Village and the Lower East Side in New York. And it was a combination of that, bands like the Ramones and the Dictators and the Dead Boys, and then Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran and Elvis Presley, and how that just all sort of blended together with our own take on things. A lot of the music that I did, although the roots are in 1950s music, the roots even go back before that.
Right, sure.
Really, rockabilly broke in the 50s. What we were doing, and I was doing in the late 70s and early 80s, never would have been done in the 50s in that way.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you said that. And here comes the next question, which is kind of odd. Go with me on it, okay? Because I said to you, does the group create the sound, or does the sound become something that the group chooses to create? But here's something else. When you look in the mirror and somebody says to you, yeah, you're handsome as hell, Lee Rocker. You look and you go, who said? I don't see it, right? Uh-huh. Is it the same with music? That people tell you have a sound and how wonderful it is, but you may hear something different than they do, and you're not quite, you have to get there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I don't think that. I definitely can listen back to some of the records over the years, and I wouldn't pick them out, but go, I could have done this differently. Maybe it would have been better if we would have done that, or, I would have played it differently, or Jim would have done something different at that point, or Brian would have. But overall, no. You know what I mean? It's
you were in control of it. You guys were in control.
It's been since 1978 when I really first started professionally that I just have a different view of things. Maybe 15 years ago, I might have had a different answer for you.
Right. So let's go forward. So you wind up going to the UK. Where'd that come from?
That came really from, we were in New York. We were doing, like I said, CBGB's, Max's Kansas City. We'd go down to Philly. We'd play all over Long Island. And it was June. I was 17. Jim was 18. Brian was 19. And one of the things was, at that point, there was a bunch of British rock and roll weekly magazines, the NME, New Musical Express, Melody Maker, a couple of others that I'm not remembering the names of, and these were rock and roll newspapers, kind of like the Village Voice, but they were entirely music. It wasn't any, city news in them. And that was super intriguing, and the amount of stuff that you'd read about going on there, and this is pre-internet, then you'd go and try to find records of other bands. So there was a little bit of an understanding for kids that, like, London was a happening place. And part of it was also, it's the summer, and we were 3 kids from New York, and we figured, what the fuck, we'll go to England, let's buy 4 airline tickets, 1 for each of us and 1 for my bass, and just go there and see what happens. At the last minute, we actually had a 5th person come with us who was a bartender from Philly who he had an English accent, so we thought he'd know what to do. That's how much thought went into it. He didn't, but, we landed in London and really started knocking on doors and of venues and meeting people, and it was, we got attention pretty quick, even just walking around in London with pompadour haircuts and pink suits.
Well, you guys were so cool. Yeah.
People were like,
who are they?
What the hell is this?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, you were cool, and that's something I want to talk to you. But first of all, so we know you had the chutzpah, but I love the way you guys put your act together, dressed. You got style, buddy. Yeah, and that makes a difference, because there's a whole package that you guys put out. So you're also a hell of a marketer, right?
It all came together. Really, nothing was really preconceived. There's been, a lot of things in the history of music and entertainment where they've got the choreographer and the costumer and the rehearsal studio and the songwriters brought in and all that, and we didn't have even if we wanted it, we wouldn't have known where to get it.
But you did have instincts.
We were into the music, we were writing music, we were listening to music, we were into the clothes and the fashion and the look of that 50s rock and roll kind of brought to the extreme. Mm-hmm. And
with a little bit of punk.
Haunt the vintage clothes shops and the thrift shops and, look for houndstooth suits or Western wear, whatever cool things we'd find. And that was definitely part of it. I think the music that I enjoy was always bands that had the whole package, that had the music, the chops from the players, the songs, the style, and the showmanship. I like the whole package. To me, that's the game. Interested.
Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. The name Stray Cats. You mentioned some of the earlier names that you came, the Tomcats, Teds, Brian. I think. What's the deal with Stray Cats? Did I ask you that already? I don't think I did. What?
No, but that's when we got to England and actually I don't think we had. I actually came up with the name when we were first in England in the first month or two. But once the record companies started to court us and hang around and rent us an apartment, or give us a place to live and a hot meal sometimes, we knew that we needed a name, and we wanted to change from what we had, which had been a couple of different floating names. So, at some point, it wasn't a whole lot of deep thought. I suggested Stray Cats, and everyone jumped at it.
Cat fetish? Or cool cat? Or what?
What's that?
I said a cool cat, stray cat?
Yeah, we were cats,
Okay.
But Stray Cats, was really the one that sort of summed up, where we were in life.
At the time.
We were on the globe too.
Sure. So the boys go to London, and like in reverse, you make it in London only to come back. So talk to me about Dave Edmunds.
Dave Edmunds was a record producer for a lot of the early days of the Stray Cats. We met Dave. We were playing a place called The Venue in London. I don't remember who we were the opening act for, but we finished the show. It might have been Elvis Costello. That might have been a little later. Memory serves me well. And we finished the set and went backstage, and there was some cool-looking guy back there drinking our vodka and tonic, and it was Dave Edmunds. And we knew of Dave a little bit. We knew the songs "Crawling from the Wreckage" and and "Rock Pile," and had never met him. And he, was there in the dressing room and talked to us, and at that point had said, "You're going to need a record producer, and the label's going to want one, and I'd like to do it and get in there and do it right before you get the wrong guy in here to screw this up." And we got along great with Dave. He really became a comrade and a friend, and he produced the first record in England, which was just called Stray Cats. The second record was called Gonna Ball, and we produced that one ourselves, actually out in Montserrat in the Caribbean. And then the third, I don't know if the third one, Dave came back and did Rant and Rave, and a number of other records over the years.
So what do you think what touch did he put on all of this, do you think?
Well, the first record in particular, we did it in 11 days. That was including the mixes, and that's really a live rock and roll record for the most part. Maybe some singing, some vocals went on after tracking. Might have been a second guitar here and there, a little tweak or something. But that was a live record, and Dave, he produced it in the way that he captured what was going on. As he said, he didn't want to change it or produce it in a way. So he didn't go, hey, why don't you change this lyric? Let's add another verse. He really kept out of the way on a lot of things, and made it comfortable. We'd never been in the studio before, where he was behind the board and the tape machine and making sure that everything was recorded professionally and sonically great and did great mixes. But he did not really step into the songwriting part of producing a record. And that was a good thing. But he captured what the essence is of what we were doing.
So now record company gets involved, and a whole bunch of them are pitching you, and you wind up with Arista. Why?
Arista, they had made the best offer. We got, at a certain point in those early days before the first deal in 1980, we had all of the record companies coming after us and courting us. There was a label called Stiff that did a lot of Stiff Records in London, did a lot of two-tone, and I think they had Costello and a bunch of people on it. We had Arista, Virgin really wanted the band badly. We wound up hanging out a bunch of times with Richard Branson. Actually played at his 40th birthday party in those early days.
Now there's a cool cat. You hear me?
What's that?
I said there's a cool cat.
Oh yeah, we went out to his barge on Maida Vale Canal, which is in London, and played Risk with him, and he might have moved a few of the pieces when we weren't looking, so we weren't sure about signing with him. And actually, at that point, too, Rolling Stones Records wanted the band, and Jagger was really interested in producing it. And we met a lot of times with him. And,
Are you freaking out when all of this is going on? I mean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I was 17,
right.
17 or just 18. It was great. It was crazy. I think we did make some good decisions just by dumb luck, and talking to other people. But in terms of Rolling Stones Records and Jagger producing it, consensus came up that we wonder if he's going to be there through the whole process or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Dave was the choice, and I'm glad we did it. And Arista Records, there was a couple of great A&R guys that really believed in the band and fought for us.
So you're a pretty grounded kind of guy, aren't you?
I think so.
Well, we always have this image of rock and rollers not being so grounded. And I always like to point out when I meet the ones that they are. In fact, just about everybody.
I'm a pretty well-grounded person. I've been married for 27 years and probably still have the same telephone for 27 years. So that must say something,
Or you don't like change, one or the other.
Right.
There you go. That could be it. All right. So then EMI America picks you guys up, and you come to the States, and Built for Speed went on to sell double platinum in the U.S. and Canada, and was the number 2 record on the Billboard album charts for 26 weeks. I know you're feeling heady through all of this, but we get back to fame and fortune and what it does to people, and you never know what it's going to do to one person or the other, right? Not a whole lot of us know people who've really catapulted to the top quite so young, quite so fast, quite so large. So what do you think it did to you and to the band and to the boys in general?
Well, I got to say, looking at it from now, we all did pretty well because we're all still here. And, the three of us, we're all alive, we're all well, we all are creating music and touring and doing different things. So, we didn't spin out that badly, but it was definitely rock and roll, and it was definitely, the 80s, it was more than the 80s, it was, 35 years of it. So, there was certain, definitely, a bunch of years of abusing yourself, and, with booze and everything else that went on, and, some bad decisions on relationships and things, but nothing, it never spun out to the point where there was no return. So I'm pretty proud of that,
You should be. Absolutely.
And really part of what happened probably was we worked so damn hard and so much, and loving every minute of it. But the record labels and management, really, we didn't have a break from 1980 till 84 or 85, and that probably contributed to the band breaking up at that point. The band's broken up and reformed a whole lot of times over the years.
Yeah.
And that was probably just, we needed a break from each other. Maybe if we were smarter and had a smarter
Hammers,
team,
right.
they would have said, you know what, these guys got to take 6 months off now, you know? Let them rejuvenate, let them recharge and get creative again and the rest of it. But, you know, it's a lot of competing. When you're in a band like that, you're a product to a lot of the business people, and they want you to stay out there and keep working and bringing in money for them as well, you know?
Absolutely. So I have two questions in the same kind of framework here. One is, are you sorry that you guys split? I mean, look, do you wish that hadn't happened when it happened the first time?
I have no regrets, no.
Okay. And the second one is this. Do this for me, okay? Share this with me. What the heck does it feel like to realize your dream?
I don't have anything else to compare it to, you know? It feels great. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm happy. You know, I've gotten to work with most or all of my heroes. I've been all over the world a lot of times.
Is it
TV shows?
Is it a pinch?
I mean, it's fantastic.
Right. Do you pinch yourself?
It's totally it's really gratifying and enables you to have a lot of freedom.
Is there fear involved in it at all? Like, I'm here, and the only place to go is down?
No, I don't look at it that way.
Boy,
anyway.
You're really great.
You know, I think at the root of it all, and maybe that's part of where I came from as a kid, and my parents and the upbringing is the root of it all. I'm a musician, and have been since I'm a kid, and am now, and you know, have been very successful at it, and very well known, and it's enabled me to do a lot of things. But that's really how I picture myself. So maybe it's what I think about myself.
Let's talk about you and the instrument, the one you play. You talked about the fact that to master it, you had to play until you bled. And I understand just how much a part of you and all musicians their instrument is. But I'm wondering for you, on the whole, what's your relationship like with your instrument? Is it a stormy marriage, a fulfilling relationship, a love and hate thing, a romantic affair, a jealous lover?
Well, I'm not. First of all, I'm not a collector, so I'm not. I mean, I've got about.
You're not a what?
Bases, but it's not like I've got the one that I recorded rock.
No, but I mean, in general, that's your instrument. That's what you play.
Right, but there are players who, they're
attached.
Specific instrument.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
I love the bass. I love what I do. You know, it is a marriage in a certain sense. You know, I always have said over the years that the bass has brought me around the world, 25 times, as opposed to the other way, And it's also, I love doing it. It's obviously a giant pain in the ass to move that thing around, and to have them shipped and showing up, and it's a big commitment. And there are certainly times now where I'll go a couple of days without playing.
Really? How's that feel?
Well, playing the bass. I'm always playing music of some sort. So,
are you getting a divorce?
Today I probably played for about 15 minutes on bass, and I probably played 30 minutes on a guitar earlier. And I've got to play piano a little bit too. But I gear up when I've got a lot of work, and because it's such a physical gig that I'll make sure I put in some time before I'm going to be out doing shows or being in the studio.
Do you ever want to just kill it?
Not in a long time. I did finish a very long tour at some point, and the final night of the tour, I was probably in my 20s. On the side of the stage, they had a fire axe, and I turned the amp on 10 and kind of a Hendrix thing, and chopped it up with an axe on stage.
Oh my God! Did you
really?
Somewhere
in France, I think.
Is there footage of that? I'd like to see.
Probably.
Oh my God! Did you hate yourself after you did it, or did it feel like the best thing?
Photos, but at that point, it wasn't everyone with the cell phone.
Yeah, no, I know, because that would have gone viral for sure. But
right.
But did you regret that, or did you say, "Oh yes, that felt great"?
We probably didn't have to ship it home,
Okay, how much do they charge to ship that thing? And your insurance on your machines must be. Oh my God!
Oh yeah, no, we do a lot of shipping, and I've got a show. I mean, for instance, in Memphis on Saturday,
right.
And I just got a text saying that it arrived there for that show.
And you take a sigh of relief?
There's usually a couple of instruments in motion, depending on what the touring schedule is.
Unbelievable. So talk to me about this. What do you hear in your head when you're quiet? Is it...
I do think about music a lot. It's funny. I visualize it and think about it, and there's definitely been a lot of times where my fingers are kind of moving when I'm asleep.
Really?
I have a good amount of times if I'm dreaming that I'm doing a concert.
Wow.
And I almost think that in a certain sense, maybe over the years, that's almost a form of
practice,
review or rehearsal.
Right. I was going to say, that's your practice. You can do that in your head.
I'll work my way through the set mentally and go, okay,
I wish I could get into your head seriously, just like, park myself, in your synapses just for a minute, just to, because no, because seriously, because you do something so unique. I mean, you can, I would just like to know how it's firing, I'll go back and I'll listen to this interview.
I mean, no one can ever know what anyone else
is truly thinking, for sure.
Thinking what it is internally, but I definitely think a lot about music and hear music and practice by thinking about it. I think other people do also. I think a lot of athletes do that. They might be practicing their pitch if you're a baseball player mentally, or playing basketball. I think there's a lot of similarities.
I can tell you talk show hosts do it too. I do that. Mm-hmm. I do it. I know that you're coming on the show. I'm talking to you all week long. So I know,
right.
I know what that.
And that's a way of preparing.
Right.
I mean, completely.
That's absolutely it. A musician friend of mine recently said to me that music for him is mathematics. Is it for you?
No. I mean, I know what they're saying. But,
what are they saying?
Depending on the instrument, a keyboard is a graph. A guitar neck, there is a spatial thing to it.
Mm-hmm.
But not so much me. And then there's obviously counting, which meter is one of the pillars.
Right,
you got to
sure.
find time,
right,
and subdivide beats, and and that. But I mean, although it is mathematical, I never think of it in that way.
I want to talk about you and your dad for a minute, because I love this. I did not know this. You were nominated for a Grammy in '82, as was your dad. And you and he are the second father-son duo to be nominated for a Grammy in the same year. How delicious is that?
Yeah, that's a dream. It's amazing. He's been nominated twice, but that year where he was nominated as a soloist with orchestra and Best New Artist for me, and an absolute dream. I think in a lot of ways my career has followed or been very similar to my dad's career, Stanley Drucker. He started very young, was with Indianapolis Symphony at 16. He was a prodigy at Buffalo at 17, and I think at 19 he landed the job at the New York Philharmonic, where he was till he was 81.
Wow.
And my career started at that same kind of age group and continued.
I love that. That's just, that's just a lovely, lovely thing.
The only thing that could have been better is if we both would have won.
Well, it's not too late.
Right. True.
You never know what could happen next, right? You were born Leon Drucker, correct?
Uh-huh.
So when did you become Lee Rocker? And how are they different? Are they?
Oh, no. The name was part of with the record deal and moving to London. Although I always went on by Lee as a kid. If it's way back, friends from way back, then it's Leon. But it's been Lee for forever at this point.
And you are who you are.
No, they're not bothered at all. But I do have a funny story that I was at one of my dad's concerts at Lincoln Center at Avery Fisher Hall, and Leonard Bernstein, who was a dear friend of theirs, was conducting, and I was backstage in the green room afterwards. And this is after the band had made it. And Bernstein was really aware of rock and roll, and he was really aware of the Stray Cats and all. And he was talking to me about a bunch of different things, sort of a descending bass line in one of the songs. I was like, wow, he really listened. Or he was obviously so talented in these years that it didn't take much for him to know exactly what was going on. But he goes, you made one mistake. And I go, what's that? He goes, you shouldn't have changed your name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So he was holding on to that Jewish thing, right? That too. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's a great story.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you shared that. You've played with the best. so many amazing people, and so many have influenced your work. I mean, you played with Harrison and Starr and the Rolling Stones and Leon Russell and the divine Willie Nelson and Eric Clapton and John Fogerty. I mean, the list is endless, and certainly we have to bring up Carl Perkins, the late, great Carl Perkins. But who haven't you played with or met, or who would you have wanted to play with?
Well, I know who I've met but not played with, which I'd love to, is Bob Dylan. We've come across each other, over the years at little things or something. I mean, it's not someone that is a friend, but we've definitely met and have not been on the same stage together.
So there are still dreams. I like that.
But just with someone that I respect so much, and for obvious reasons, and also I think what I do would work really well with what he does.
Oh,
so
for
it's
sure.
not like going, I don't know, Genesis or or something,
Yeah,
but,
I do. Absolutely.
But yeah, that's in the same bag. And I've gotten to, either record or step up on stage or play with, most of the people who I think that I'm a match for musically, and they have too.
So a lot of the great originals and then you and Carl Perkins, out of everybody, who do you hold in the highest esteem?
Well, Carl Perkins, to me, I love the guy. He was a great guy, and he did so much for me in a lot of different ways. He inspired me before I knew him. He was incredibly kind, and we worked together quite a lot. I met him the first time we did the Stray Cats were doing a show at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, or the Rhineman, and he came out on stage and on the encores, and we didn't even know he was there, but he was standing in the wings with a guitar and came out and did Blue Suede Shoes with us. And from that, we really struck up a friendship that lasted until he passed away, I think, in 89. And he incorporated me in a lot of his projects and albums and concerts, and had a great time with him. So musically, he was,
he was it.
One of the inventors of rock and roll.
No
first
question.
Of all.
Yeah.
If there's a Mount Rushmore of rock and roll, he would certainly be one of the faces carved into the mountain. From writing Blue Suede Shoes to being a huge influence on the Beatles, writing so much great music, but someone who was a writer, a singer, and a player. So he was really a triple threat in a time that didn't exist. He was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. And he hooked me up, and was just nothing but a great guy and a gentleman. So he's first and foremost, I would say. But I've got a lot of respect for so many people.
I can imagine.
George Harrison was really a thrill to get to work with.
I imagine. Oh, wow.
And that came about, and get to know, through Carl. So he was a conduit in a lot of ways. In addition to my career up to that point with the Stray Cats, Carl he included me in his group of people. And that was really fantastic.
So, Lee, it's more than a little weird that a nice Jewish boy from middle-class Long Island winds up being the unofficial goodwill ambassador and cheerleader for rockabilly, right? The southern white music. You ever think about that? Does that just make you laugh?
No, I don't think about it much, but it's just everything is so mixed up, and there's so many different people. I mean, one of the things about music and rock and roll is it's so universal, and it's who it connects with, and although the image of rock and roll is this southern kind of thing, the reality is, a lot came out of the South, but there was a lot of music out of New York and Philly that was rock and roll and rockabilly, and Pennsylvania with Bill Haley, and Canada, that it really is a broader thing. It's like the image has been painted where it's this,
well, it's the Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, yeah,
and
right.
That's definitely not the case. And even in Europe, very early on in England, I mean, the Teddy Boy movement and these English 50s rock stars doing the same kind of music.
What's the deal with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I've been there. I don't know what the deal is with it, I don't know why they put it in Cleveland, but it'd be easier if it was in New York or L.A., but
I cannot believe you guys are not in it. This pisses me off enormously.
The political situation to some degree, but it's and that's fine. If you.
How did it get to be so political, though? This is. Do you hear me? This annoys me.
Rolling Stone magazine really founded it. The founder of the magazine, Jan, and to a certain extent, and then there's a board of people, and a lot of it's brought to bear by pressure from fans, but also there's a lot of it are on the business end, record companies working their catalogs, and business is business.
So I'm starting a movement. If they don't want to take the Stray Cats in for whatever their lunatic political stuff is, how could they not have one of the great musicians of all time, you, in that thing? That just
thank you.
That just really ticks me off.
So that's good. And Joan Jett just got in.
Right, but it's
And my pal Leon Russell got in after an incredible continuing career, and Elton John forcing them to.
Well, we're going to work on them about you.
Yeah.
So there you go. Talk to me about country music today. Talk to me about music today.
Oof.
Right? What the hell is going
there's very
on?
Little country music that is on the radio that's has anything to do with country music. A lot of it's just bad pop.
Right.
But there's a movement. I mean, one of the good things to come of digital music and the internet and all that is the ability to discover all kinds of cool, interesting things and give a lot of artists an outlet that they can access. It's not like it was at one time where you had to get a record deal and jump through these hoops and in order for your music to have an outlet. So there's a lot of bad country music. There's some good stuff. I mean, I don't know if I'd categorize it exactly as country, but there's a band, two artists that I really like that are out now, Madison Ward and the Mama Bear, and that's country-ish Americana music that I don't think would have seen the light of day without the changes in how music is
put out there.
Put out, yeah.
Yeah, put out there. The thing about it is, to me, schools don't treat the arts the way they used to. When the budget cuts are done, the first thing that goes is music and art and that and literature. It's just crazy what they think is important. And I wonder where the kids today are getting the kind of education early on that you can pick out people like a young Lee Drucker. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, maybe some schools there are, some there aren't. I think it's definitely tougher than it used to be. But it's always you always have to be a self-starter. Everyone needs help and instruction and encouragement. But this kind of a field, any of the arts, whether you're painting or playing music or anything, you just have to be willing to and have the constitution to just go out there and do it.
I bring it up because of
do it and convince people. And whether your painting is fantastic or your music, and if you can't do that, if you can't do that eventually at a certain point, then you're maybe barking up the wrong tree.
I guess I'm bringing it up because I think there's mediocrity in music today.
There is. We always said that the real test is for any of these bands, musicians, are if you could put a hat and a bag over their head and put them in front of Macy's on 34th Street with their instrument and a jar on the ground, is anyone going to stand there and listen and put $1 in it? And that's the test.
There you go.
And I think there's a lot of bands, musicians out there that nobody would even stop.
Right.
Somehow they're existing.
Right. It makes me crazy. Are you still doing your radio show?
I was doing for a year. I did a radio show on XM called Rumble and Twang,
right.
And that was rockabilly and Americana music. I just did that monthly, and I loved doing radio. And then more recently, I do a show when I can here. My hometown at the moment is Laguna Beach, California, at a small FM station that's obviously online as well called KX 93.5, and I do a once-a-week show when I'm able to, and I use that same name, Rumble and Twang.
I love it. Everybody should go and
tell stories, play music that I like, interesting things, kind of things that I've dug up that might be off the path, and that's a community station that does a nice job, and you get to do whatever you want with the time.
So listen, you're touring.
Yeah.
You're going to be in Memphis soon. I know. What are you doing about 40?
15th of August.
Yeah. You're doing what, about 40 and 50 dates a year now?
Yeah, that's where I'm happiest. I like the number 40, and I try to target at that. Some years are more, some years are a little bit less, but that's the amount of concerts that I get out there. I totally enjoy it, and it doesn't force me to live on a tour bus.
Right.
I've done that for a long time, and now I'm really happy flying out and doing a couple of dates and flying back, and being super active. Great for my chops, great for me mentally, and without the real heavy grind of living on the road.
What about recording?
Oh, recording also. I'm way overdue for an album.
Yes.
These last few years, I've been in and out of the studio, and I've got a lot of songs and a lot of half-finished things, and I keep saying that I'm going to clear 2 or 3 months and get in there and finish this record. But it's been dragging. I got to admit it.
Yeah, can I slap you? Slap. You need to get something out.
I've taken enough time that I've gone through a couple of different visions of what I want the record to be. So that tells me I took too long, as opposed to go, here's this one, here's that one.
It's too much in your head.
But I'm happy with what I've got on tape.
Okay.
I just need to complete it.
Can't wait to hear what you come up with next. So, Lee, talk to me about this. I'm wondering if you can ever be satisfied with what you created as a musician. And even this album that we're talking about that's having a hard time getting itself birthed. Always going over that hill? There's always something a little bit better, a little bit more. I can do this riff better.
Yeah, that's the problem with the recording process is when you're done, and that's probably why I haven't finished it, because I haven't been ready to, go, now it's done. When I go to listen back, it's, I don't like that opening lyric. Okay, I've got to change that.
You drive yourself nuts, right?
It's this, it's that,
Yeah.
and as time goes on, as a musician, I was telling you the first record did it in 11 days. This one's been taking years. There's something to be said for both ways of doing it. Capturing the moment of young musicians and a young band with its most energy, that's the way to go. For me, at this point, I've got tons of energy, but I'm looking for something different in the recordings, and I'm probably striving for more perfection. So it's a balance, between kind of emotion and perfection, rounding off the edges, or if there's mistakes, cleaning them up. It's always the question, do you clean it up or don't you?
Right. So listen, you had the success with the Stray Cats as a young kid. You've played with the best. You've created some of the great albums of all time. We both know that you're like the best musician ever, blah, 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 blah. You're a dad. You're a husband. You're a son. All of it. What's the most important thing to you in your life?
I would say at this point, definitely family. As you said, I'm married 27 years. I've got 2 kids. Parents are both well. So that's at the forefront, and followed closely behind by what I do, which is music, and to be a creative person and put something out there that expresses myself and gives me satisfaction, and hopefully has the legs to stand some time out there.
Well, Lee Rocker, you are music to my ears, and to everybody else's. Thanks.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with the Bass King, one of the founding members of the iconic band, the Stray Cats, the legendary Lee Rocker. For tour dates and information on his latest music and just about anything else you want to know about one of the great musicians of our day, visit leerocker.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. Associate producer, Suzanne Probst. Music by Tony Rosales Jazz. Visit HalliCasserJayne.com.